Okay, so I'm going to share with you how my first week went as a founder, a tech founder. Oh, it was not what I thought it would be. I thought I'd hit the ground running, and I didn't hit the ground running. I actually tripped over quite a few times this week, and I'll just briefly explain why. There was a process that I had to follow because my end game this week was to submit an application to the government, who are calling for evidence for an AI growth hub. And basically it allows people with AI-based products and services to use the government sandbox to demonstrate the viability of their product or service. So I thought, oh, this applies to me. I'll send off the application, 27 questions worth, but you needed an email to put in the application. And I didn't have a business email, and I didn't want to use my personal email because I didn't want them to think that just some, 60-year-old housewife was approaching them to give them evidence about AI. So there was a process. So to get an email, I needed a Google Workspace, and to get a Google Workspace, I needed a domain, and then to get a domain, I needed a company name and registration, and then to get a company name and registration, I needed to do a Tide bank account because I wanted to be cheap and just pay $14.99 instead of £50 for my company registration. Big mistake. Not a big mistake in the sense that I shouldn't have done it, but I didn't realize that Tide is not an efficient formation agent. You will get the benefits of a cheaper registration, and that's a big deal if you're just setting out. But the consequences of that are that it doesn't take minutes, it takes days. And in my case, it took 4 days to register a company. So this then set me back for all the steps that I needed to get this email, to send this document to the government, to register my evidence for this call for evidence. So let's go through what happened, shall we? I registered the company on the 1st of January, and I had hoped that it would be registered on the 1st of January as a kind of statement of intention that the 1st of January, first day of the year, let's get into it. I had hoped it would be registered on the 1st, but I thought because it was a bank holiday, it would probably be the 2nd, even though it's an automated process. So people aren't filling in your paperwork to give you a 1st of January registration. It's a computer system, right? So I decided I would use Tide because of the $14.99 offer that I keep talking about. Tide is an online bank with no way to contact people by phone readily. So they will hold you in a stacked pattern of you are the -1 person in the queue. I don't know what that means. You're the -1 person in the queue, and then they keep you there for a very long time. You send messages through their chatbot and you don't really get responses. You have to designate what kind of query you have, and you can't just tell them your query. You have to choose between a bunch of options that don't even relate to your query. And then when you say no, it's not that, they give you another bunch of options to choose from. So you can't actually just freeform say, look, my registration is taking longer than it should. The app is telling me it'll be a few minutes. It's now been 4 days. What's going on? You can't do that. So then I sent emails, and someone then says an onboarding person will come back to you, and you say, will it be today? And then you just don't get a response. And then they have the nerve to say to you, would you like to fill in a customer service questionnaire to ask us how well we did? And I thought I better not do that because I don't really want to be lying on a form. So no, I won't be doing that. Ultimately, I got a call from this poor guy in Bulgaria who was a Tide agent, and he spoke to me about the application, and he basically told me that the reason I couldn't get my second company registered, so the first company took 4 days and the second company couldn't be registered because, this was his words, Companies House won't let you register 2 shareholders in a company. And I said to him, but I only registered a single shareholder, that was me, and your app only allows 1 shareholder. So by the way, for those people watching, you can only use 1 shareholder when you first create a company with Tide. So how could I have asked for 2 shareholders if your app doesn't allow for 2 shareholders, and I didn't even ask for 2 shareholders? And he said, I don't know, I've never seen that before, it does seem a bit strange. So I said, could you put some notes on my account to ask someone to contact me because I would like to get this sorted? And he said, you need to call Companies House directly yourself. So I said, okay, thanks very much. It wasn't this guy's fault that the system, doesn't work very well. So that was that. Then somebody called me back and she went through it with me. This was a day or so later. I actually can't remember. It's been a nightmare week. And she went through it with me, a very nice lady, and basically explained that she didn't know why this had taken so long either. Anyway, long story short, managed to get the second company registered. I had to call it something different for some reason because of the rejection of the application, even though it's a unique company name. And then what I'll do downstream is I will change the company back to the name I wanted, directly with Companies House, and that's just a form to amend it, and there's a small fee. That's not a problem. So I do have both companies registered now. So that was stage 1. Stage 2, I thought it can't get any worse than this. We went to the domain registrar. So I did my domain registration, and I went through ChatGPT to get some ideas about what to call things, because it was really for this government application that I needed to do this and so that I could get the Google Workstation. So I went on to Ionos because they do a deal where domains are just £1 plus VAT, so £1.20 per domain. And then I made the mistake of agreeing to the bundle that they said I could add. So I wanted a domain, and then they said if you get the .co.uk, the .uk, the .something else and the .something else, it's just £1 more. And I thought, oh, why not? Bargain. So I was going to be paying £2.40 for a bunch of domains, and then I can park those domains, and if I use them, fine, and if I don't, then that's fine as well. But if you sit on the page longer than the transaction of taking those domains and putting it in a basket, it's like a dynamic pricing, and the price will change. So it goes from £1 to £2.60 for the extra bundle. So I thought, oh, that's not right. Shouldn't go up, like that. So I thought, well, I'll come out of the page and I'll refresh the page to get it back to £1. I know I'm quibbling about £1 here, but it's the principle, right? So, and then when I came out, it went up to £19 for the bundle. So I abandoned the bundle and I just bought the £1.20 domain from Ionos. And as far as I can remember, they didn't have the .com. So I just bought one domain from Ionos. And the mistake I made, because it was £1.20, I thought, I'm not going to use a credit card for £1.20. I will use my husband's PayPal account. Bad move, big mistake, because what happened was it defaulted to him being the owner of the domain. And I didn't want him to be the owner of the domain. I wanted my IP company to be the owner of the domain. That was the whole point of setting up 2 companies. The intellectual property stays with one company and the operations is with another, because downstream there's going to be a licensing agreement. We'll go into that another day. But suffice to say, my husband, I did not want him to be the owner of my £1 domain. So I had to get on to ChatGPT, my best mate in all of this calamity of a week, and ask, what do I do? And ChatGPT had me go through the process of registering the new registrant, even though that was the registrant that we put on the domain particulars in the first place. It made it difficult because it went to his email instead of the email I'd put in for the company. It was just a disaster. And the email I was using for the company was just a Gmail, regular personal Gmail account that I just had with my company name in it. So, long story short, the domains were at least there and they came through as being in my basket and paid for, but the problem was the registrant was the wrong registrant, and that I thought was going to present problems for me with Google Workspace, which was the next step. ChatGPT, I asked to hold my hand through the next phase, because you go into Google Workspace, you get a Google Workspace, it's free for 14 days, so it helps you to do all kinds of things more efficiently, whatever. I just needed to get the email from my domain so that I could use it with my Gmail account. It's quite a straightforward thing in my head, but it's not straightforward in practice. Even though they say it's really simple, you can just use your regular email account, and it will be, when you're sending emails from your company, they'll just be in your inbox. And it sounds great. Yeah, super. I just press a button, don't I? No, you don't. You have to go back to the domain hosting company with the right email, which was my husband's email and not my company email. And then you have to do a bunch of things. I can't even remember now. ChatGPT talked me through it, thank goodness. And I was able to change the machinations behind the domain so that it pointed to the Google servers, something like that. I don't know if I'm using the right words, but I think it was that. So Google then accepted the domain particulars, and it meant then that Google Workspace would be the place for my email. But there was a bunch of stuff to do on Google as well, which I actually can't remember, so I'm sorry about that, but you'll see that for yourself if you want to set up your email in this way. It is an efficient way, a very efficient way of working, but it's just a bit of a hassle at the back end. I don't know why they don't make it easier for people. A lot of people would want to use Google Mail for their company domains, but anyway, that's how it went. So I finally got my email set up, and I could put my name in, and it was my name at, and then my domain, and I was like, oh wait, this is fantastic. So then I did my application to the government for my evidence for the AI Growth Hub. And like I say, it was 27 questions. I think about 8 or 9, no, the first 6 were just yes, no's, and what sector are you in, and what's your name, and that kind of thing. So that was the first 6 questions. And then about 7 other questions were where you just ticked a checkbox, and then you could put a couple of extra notes in under the words other. And then the rest were like questions where they wanted like full answers. And the maximum answer you could give, the maximum length of the answer was 300 words. So it would say 300 words and then say, I don't know, 15 questions. 15 questions, no more than, roughly 15 questions of 300 words. Let's say, I actually can't remember, sorry. So I got my application ready. The deadline was the 7th of January, so yesterday? David, what's the date today? Is it the 8th? Oh, 2 days ago. Gosh, this is the week it's been. It was 2 days ago. The deadline was 1 minute to midnight. And I didn't want to be like I always was at university, where I was giving things in at the very last minute. I thought, I'm going to get this in early. But with all the problems I'd had getting to the point of submission of the evidence, it meant that I had to give it in on the 7th, the actual day of the 7th, but I didn't want to be giving it in at midnight or 1 minute to midnight. I wanted it done during the day so that I could then go for a walk in the light afterwards to just decompress and get rid of all my cortisol. The problem I had is that my versioning, my answers to the questions I did in Google Docs, and Google Docs is a modern system that does versioning for you, but I wanted to have old versions and new versions next to each other so that I could compare my answers when I was making changes, last minute changes, and I had a whole bunch of versions. Ridiculous is how I always worked in the olden days when software was rubbish, but I haven't kind of like moved on with the times, even though I'm like in the AI sphere. Can you believe it? So anyway, I did my versioning, and then at the very end I realized I'd been correcting 2 different documents. Oh my God. And I didn't know which was the most current, and I was like, oh my God. So what I had to do was go back to each question and work out, which one said what at what time, and it was a disaster. Anyway, long story short, I managed to get it done. I then went onto the government website, and the government website had crashed because obviously everyone was trying to get their evidence in on the last day. So I went to ChatGPT. I said, oh my God, the government website's not working. And ChatGPT said, it's fine. That's what happens on last days sometimes. Don't worry about it. Just keep refreshing the page. And then after a while, it did come up again. So I thought, let me start now because I don't want this crashing. And what I did, thank God, is I took screenshots of every question that I submitted, because you had to submit it like an online form. So each question you put in your 300 word or less word answer. You could stretch the text box to show your entire answer. And I did a screenshot of every submission that I made, every one of those 27 submissions, if you like, or questions or answers. And then I submitted the document, and it was all over, and it said, thank you for your evidence or something like that. And I just like decompressed and just got up and started like being cheerful and doing a bit of a jig. And then I went for a walk, and then I just relaxed in front of some true crime and just had a great evening. And then I thought, I'm going to tidy up my desktop worktop, because it was a bit of a mess with lots of different documents and cut and paste things and stuff like that. And I thought, I better put these screenshots in a folder as well and put them on Google Drive so that everything's organized if and when I come back to them. And if I'm invited to go into the sandbox, I can have everything there to show what I did in the run-up to the application. So I just went through the screenshots, and I was renaming them from the regular PNG labels you get, and I was renaming them so that they would make sense. So I was renaming them question 1, question 2, etc. And when I got to the question about the name and the email I gave, the big process that I went through to get an email with Google, I only gave the wrong name. I gave the wrong email name. I misspelt my brand new domain. I misspelt it. And it's only got 4 letters. It's got 4 letters. And I misspelt it. And it was like, oh my goodness, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. What do I do here? So my husband said, well, why don't you resubmit the whole thing again? And I said, I can't do that because they might disqualify me for submitting 2 applications. So I decided to write an email, and I wrote an email to an AI hub. So it's not a person, it's the AI hub for the government. And I wrote an email to an AI hub where I'm giving advice on an AI solution that I have created, and I don't even know my own email. I don't even know how to put my own email as a point of contact. That doesn't instill much confidence, does it? So I wrote the email. I haven't heard back from them, not surprisingly. If I don't hear back, I'll write again. I have a contact name for a lady at the Department of Science and Industry and Technology, or whatever it's called, formerly the DTI. Us oldies call it the DTI. I have a contact name there that is on the Call for Evidence webpage. So hopefully I'll be able to find her, because they only list her snail mail address and not her email address, and there's no contact telephone number either. So not easy to get hold of people in Whitehall, but that's where it is, Whitehall. So that was my week. It went really well, and it ended really well, and then it didn't go well. It went really badly. Then it ended well because I got the application in, and then it ended badly because I realised that I was thick at 60 years of age, almost 61, and couldn't even remember my own email. But I think it was tiredness and just sheer frustration, really, and stress. Anyway, long story short, the application is in. Hopefully I get a call back and for an invite to their sandbox, and if I don't, that's fine as well, because I still got to press on regardless, because these government things are not overnight and things are moving very quickly in this space. So that's been my week. I saved it all till today, Friday, because I had the day off yesterday to recover because I couldn't cope with any more. And I'll try and make it on Fridays going forward, because it's a nice end to the week just to chat about your week. If anybody is watching, then let me know how your week is going, how your new company is getting on, whether you're where you hoped to be after your first week. And if you have any comments or you want to ask anything about what I did in terms of domains or Tide Bank or Google Workstations, just let me know. See you next week.